My name's John Tillman. I'm the CEO of the Illinois Policy Institute. If you're watching this, that means you care about the future of Illinois, and we care too. That's why each year we put out a balanced, alternative budget to what the governor proposes, and this year's is more amazing than ever. This year, what you're about to see balances the budget by making transformative proposals to reform $7 billion worth of spending. You're going to see a lot. It's going to be pretty amazing, and we'll let you know what others are not saying, and that is that there is a future for Illinois that is brighter and better. Enjoy.
Years of overspending have left Illinois on a spiral of decline. Illinois has $8.5 billion in unpaid bills. Illinois' operational budget has outgrown our population growth by 85% over the last 20 years. Illinois' fiscal decline was highlighted by a series of events and statistics in 2011. Moody's credit rating agency determined that our state was the nation's worst credit risk, behind even California. Last year, Illinois sent more people to the unemployment line than any other state in the nation. Last year, Illinois lost 66,000 residents to other states, the latest in a long trend of people leaving for better opportunities elsewhere. Illinois is not competitive when it comes to being a place where people want to live. But there is a way to stop the decline. There is a plan to help Illinois become #1 in job creation and #1 in economic opportunity. There is a plan to help the poor and disadvantaged when and where they need it most. There is a plan to help make Illinois a place where individuals and families come to build a better life. This is that plan. Before any other reforms can be undertaken, Illinois must rein in the state legislature's spending power. Illinois needs a real, effective, balanced budget requirement, and that means an amendment to the state constitution. Illinois' current spending caps are out of touch with its fiscal reality and are higher than its projected revenue. Until this problem is addressed, the state will just continue borrowing money. That's been done enough, and now Illinois has the third highest debt per taxpayer ratio of any state in the nation. Once lawmakers are forced to face the constraints of fiscal responsibility, we can get Illinois out of the decline and headed towards prosperity. In doing so, we will save the state $7 billion. Let's take a closer look.
Hi, my name is Ted Dabrowski, and I'm the Vice President of Policy at the Illinois Policy Institute. Our team put together a plan to save Illinois $7 billion, and here's the details of that plan. Our plan is based on 3 sets of reforms intended to make spending more accountable, more sensible, and more aligned with our economic reality. Our first set of reforms increases accountability at the state and local levels. Today, spending is complex and not intuitive. In many cases, the state picks up the tab for local governments, which distorts spending accountability. In the end, the spending may not reflect the will of the taxpayers in those districts. Here are the 3 biggest examples of that and what we can do about them. Let's look at school funding. General state aid was meant to send state dollars to tax-poor school districts so that every student in Illinois could receive a base level of funding. But today, certain school districts often receive GSA subsidies that help them bypass local spending caps. In other cases, education dollars indirectly subsidize economic development when they go to school districts located in tax increment financing districts. The state should end both of these subsidies. The savings for the state, $1.1 billion. Our next objective is local pension accountability. One of the tenets of good accounting is that costs should be paid where they are incurred, and yet the state pays for teachers' pensions even though teachers are not state employees. This creates a mixed set of incentives that foster salary spiking and compensation sweeteners at the local level. By placing pension costs to where they are incurred, accountability can be restored throughout the state. Districts need to be responsible for the pensions of their employees. Our reform will accomplish that while also saving the state $800 million. Finally, there's the local government distributive fund. Every year, lawmakers raise taxes across the state only to send back more than $1 billion to local communities through the local government distributive fund. Our reforms instead say keep the money in the community in the first place. In conjunction with the repeal of the 2011 tax hike, we should eliminate the LGDF and other tax sharing programs. The state will save $1.6 billion, and taxpayers will have more money in their pockets. Our second set of reforms is called sensible spending. This set reins in wasteful spending and makes sure that money is spent on those who need it most. For example, Medicaid enrollment has ballooned by more than 80% since 2000. Medicaid is no longer helping the most vulnerable. As coverage expands, those who need it most are crowded out. Illinois needs to revisit eligibility requirements to reverse this trend. We also need to transfer to a premium assistance program that gives the poorest residents the freedom to choose health care plans that meet their needs. This will help the poorest and most vulnerable by putting them in a system that offers actual health care as opposed to just meaningless coverage. And it will help everyone else by saving Illinois $1.7 billion. We also need to address the fact that the state doles out numerous grants of less than $5 million each to various departments. That doesn't sound like a lot, but there are several hundred of them each year, and the costs add up to $350 million a year. Our solution is to implement a program called competitive grant funding, where we'd set aside $150 million to fund all of these programs. Each program would then have to submit a request for money from that fund and justify that money by highlighting effectiveness and need. Implementing this program and competition will save $200 million. Our third section is called Realignment with Reality. This is where we get state spending in line with Illinois' economic situation. Illinois has promised $100 billion in state retiree health benefits over the next 30 years, but it hasn't set aside any money to pay for these benefits. State retirees contribute little or nothing to their health insurance premiums. Compare that to the private sector, where most retirees don't get any coverage, and those that do must still pay the majority of their costs. Our solution requires retirees to contribute more to their health care premiums. We also cap retiree subsidies so that the state doesn't reward government workers for retiring early. This will save Illinois $425 million. Next, human services in Illinois need to change. For too long, the state has overpromised on commitments to nonprofits and has failed to pay the bills on time. Additionally, the lack of transparency and accountability in human services funding has left taxpayers unable to evaluate how well tax dollars are being spent. We propose the state reduce human service commitments to a sustainable level that allows the state to pay its bills on time. Grant recipients should compete for funds to ensure that the most necessary and effective programs receive the scarce resources available. In total, this plan will save Illinois $500 million. Our next objective is to right-size state employee pay. Today, that pay is out of sync with private sector standards. From 1993 to 2008, real wages and salaries for state employees increased by 12.6%. In comparison, private sector employee wages decreased by 1.6% over the same time period. To restore that balance, salaries for state employees should be reduced by 10%. This will save the state $520 million. Finally, we have to reform the cost of living adjustments for state retirees. In conjunction with real pension reform, Illinois COLAs can be reduced in order to bring down Illinois' unfunded pension liabilities. Our COLA reform proposal will save at least $120 million in fiscal year 2013 and billions of dollars more in the future. These are our proposals: increase accountability, spend smarter, and realign spending to meet Illinois' economic reality. These reforms, totaling $7 billion, allow the state to repeal the 2011 tax hike, repay billions in debt, and put Illinois back on a path to prosperity. We hope you'll join us in this plan.
Illinois isn't the only state to come under economic strain, but it is virtually alone in thinking that raising taxes is the way out. 9 states, Missouri, Ohio, New Jersey, Maine, Idaho, Oklahoma, Kansas, Indiana, and Nebraska, are repealing or reducing their income taxes to attract people and investment. They understand that lower taxes makes them more competitive, which in turn spurs economic growth. Also, Illinois is not alone in facing difficult budget shortfalls. Wisconsin closed a $2.9 billion deficit in 2011-2012. Missouri has reduced its spending by $1.6 billion since 2008. Indiana went from 7 successive years of budget deficits to having $1.3 billion in reserves. In Florida, lawmakers are working to reduce the burden on taxpayers by slashing $2.9 billion from its budget. Georgia introduced zero-based budgeting, which requires agencies to justify not just funding increases from the previous year, but total funding every year. New Hampshire reduced spending to close a $40 million budget gap. Democrat-controlled Rhode Island implemented pension reforms, saving a state with one of the worst funded pension systems in the nation $3 billion. Now it's our turn. We tried raising taxes, but we failed to close our budget gap. It's time for a different approach. We can save the state $7 billion. By implementing serious spending caps and following our plan, Illinois can end its cycle of overpromising and overspending. We can rebuild Illinois' reputation as a great state, a state where people want to live and do business.
Wasn't that amazing? A lot of people are saying it's not possible to solve our fiscal challenges. But there you saw it. We have the solutions, but it will take political courage to pass these solutions into law. And that courage comes from you. The legislators need to hear from you. They need to hear that you want to take these tough choices to reform Illinois and see Illinois rising once again. We need you to go to our Facebook page, our YouTube page, and especially to illinoispolicy.org and learn how you can make a difference to lead Illinois back on the path to prosperity. Thank you.